Great. Good morning, everyone. I'm from Newcastle University's RSE team. At the moment, there are 12 of us, and we are expecting 2 more to join our team in the second half of the year. So my name is Janetta Steyn. I'm a senior research software engineer. I spend 50% of my time on software engineering projects and 50% on organizing carpentry workshops. So at the moment, most of our attendees are PhD students who are required to do workshops for a certain amount of credits as part of their studies. However, our plan is to try and get more PIs and RAs on the workshop so that the need for these skills and good practice in developing software feeds from the top down. And I'm sure you will agree that if it would make our lives as RSEs significantly easier if we can pick up a project from GitHub rather than from 3 different people's hard drives and memory sticks, and data that's stored in an Excel spreadsheet over 4 worksheets containing inputs and outputs from their model. And that is a specific rant for a specific project I had to work on. So I qualified as an instructor carpentry instructor early in 2020, and I started organizing and instructing on the workshops. So as you might or might not know, there are 3 types of workshops that the carpentries offer: data carpentry, library carpentry, and software carpentry. For the moment, we are only focusing on software carpentry, which includes version control, Git, the Unix shell, and either Python or R. We are offering Python at the moment, but I hope we will soon be able to also offer R. Since July 2020, we have hosted 6 software carpentry workshops, mostly aimed at Newcastle students. And so far, we've trained about 150 people. We have another workshop planned for next week. And this workshop is actually part of a bootcamp organized by the National Innovation Center for Data and is for a cohort of 63 second-year students. And then we are also planning to run another workshop, which will only include Git and Unix shell lessons for a group of master students in October. We allow people to book only on some of the lessons. So at the moment, we've got waiting lists for these, which is about 22 people for Git, 17 for Unix, and 65 people on the waiting list for Python. So since I qualified as a carpentry instructor, the rest of our team have also done the instructor training and have completed or are busy with the checkout procedures. We use students as helpers and they are paid as demonstrators. We do, however, still run short of helpers at times. So if any of you are interested in volunteering as a helper, please contact me. Unfortunately, we can't pay people who are not students at Newcastle, but I know that a lot of newly qualified instructors are always looking for opportunities to serve as helpers to get the experience. So Marion asked me also to tell you a little bit about CarpenPi. It is a brand new project that sprouted from the Hack Day of the Software Sustainability Institute's 2021 Collaborations Workshop. That's always a mouthful. We had to come up with ideas for the Hack Day, and that is how CarpenPi happened. The problem we wanted to solve is to bring carpentries to parts of the world, such as Indonesia and probably parts of Africa, where internet access is a problem. So as most of you probably know, it is pretty difficult to run these workshops without internet access. To retrieve Python and R libraries and also download the data required and so forth. And then there's also the Git episode on collaborative working, which requires access to a GitHub server or GitLab or whatever. And this is the solution we presented. Use a Raspberry Pi. Oh, no, sorry. That was yesterday's presentation. It should be this Raspberry Pi. Yeah, most of you will probably know the Raspberry Pi. It's a credit card size single board, relatively low cost computer. The latest Raspberry Pi has a quad-core ARM CPU and either 2, 4, or 8 gigabytes of RAM. And by adding a keyboard and a mouse, you have a not so bad workstation which is quite usable. So using one Pi as an access point, we can create a network of Pis, either using the access point Pi or a second Pi. We can create a server which can serve a website with all the carpentry's lessons, a Git server, a CRAN repository, and a Python library repository. So I've set up a Pi 4 with 4 GB of RAM and the 240 GB solid state drive to run an Apache server. So this is the default Apache page being served from the Pi. I've configured it to run 3 different virtual servers. If you keep an eye on the URL at the top there, you'll notice they all go to Tim, which is the name of the server. This is using Minicran. It serves a repository to download our libraries. And as you can see, the homepage still needs a bit of work. That's a hint, by the way, for anyone who wants to volunteer. And you'll see the URL there is tim.cran, whereas the previous one was tim.local. So it's still all on the same server. And then there's tim.web, and this one serves the lessons. And again, some more work for someone who would like to volunteer. This homepage also still needs some work. And then I've installed Git. It is a Git service to replace GitHub. So GitLab, being open source, is a better known alternative to GitHub, but it seems to be a bit resource hungry. And so someone suggested Git, and that's really a nice piece of software. It seems to provide everything one needs to teach the collaborative side of Git. It runs its own web server, so this one is serving on port 3000. The last thing which I have not yet set up is a Python repository. And as I mentioned before, all of this is running from one single Pi. So once our suitcase of Pis are configured and ready, we can send an instructor to a place where there is a need for training. Ideally, we would also like to develop a workshop to teach instructors on how to use the CarpenPi setup so that they in turn can run workshops on their own. We plan to run pilots in England first. After that, we can select places that are relatively easy to access, such as South Africa and Botswana, and where we already have some contacts and collaborators. And then the next thing, of course, is funding. I have on my list of things to do to look for funding resources, such as the RSE Society's events and initiatives grant, the Wellcome Trust, the Newton Fund. My thinking is that if we can get some funding to build up one CarpenPi kit, that is a couple of Pis for servers and 8 or so Pis as workstations, then we can start running our pilot workshop in the UK. We can then start looking into collaborations with people in LMIC nations who are able to find funding for kit from their own national funding bodies. Many parts of the world that have the need for CarpenPi kit and training are in troubled regions and are less accessible to us. So what we can do, though, is to travel to a central city, university or whatever, and train the trainers who can return to their own regions and carry on the work. If possible, we could make resources to assist those who will be applying for funding from their regional funding bodies. During the Hack Day, we created a GitHub organization with 9 repositories. Since then, we've added 2 more by my count. If you are interested in more information, please visit the repository. We also have a Slack channel and we have meetings once a month. And any feedback and suggestions would be highly appreciated and welcomed. Thank you all for listening. Now, well, like I said, I think the first one I'll try and apply to is the RSE, the Society of RSE's one. That's not a lot, but that might give us a kickstart. And then the team will have to decide. I think one of the team is actually applying for something at the moment. I can't remember specifically what it is, but it's still a lot of thinking going around. And yeah, and like I said, I'm waiting also for suggestions and recommendations and everything. Yes, unfortunately, this idea of mine came after the SSI fellowships were already closed. So maybe I'll apply for that next year. Yeah, that would actually be a good one. Also, as just to get the thing kickstarted